I, 18 female, came from a happy to sad in a glimpse family. When I was young, my parents were perfect until my father went out to get milk, only for me to realize 3 years later he had a new family and a new baby coming on the way. He was low contact with us during those missing years. However, he still insisted on having a relationship with me and shared custody. I've never gotten along with this family, and it sucks to see their happy family, whereas I've been miserable. It's safe to say I make no effort to blend in, but I'm not rude because they aren't responsible for my state. My father is. Recently, I got into a prestigious college, and my parents agreed to pay half and half. A few days ago, I fought with my half-brother because he kept calling me names and I lost it, and said that he's a little idiot and I'd be waiting for my dad to leave him as he did with me, and I left to live with my mom. My dad called a day later, stating he would no longer pay for my tuition and I should figure out a way because he didn't feel obligated to pay for a brat like me. I cried a little bit, but I was prepared for this, so I did save money and looked into loans. This is where I might be the idiot. My father couldn't have kids after me, and my half-brother was conceived through IVF and had a different donor. I told him never to contact me, that if I were to get married, he wouldn't walk me down the aisle or even see me in any of my future milestones. My dad's side of the family and his wife are blowing up, asking how I could do this as the firstborn, knowing full well he can never have a daughter and that I was the last of him left. I feel bad for taking away his rights, but my mom says he deserves it. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Being a parent isn't conditional. Who takes away their child's education over a spat between siblings, and then sent in the flying monkeys to do his dirty work? When he cut you off, he wrote his fate, not you. After that, he had no right to expect future milestones and is arrogant to think otherwise. Inform him that you're not his doormat. I wonder if these same people blew up his phone when he walked out on you. As the parent, it was his responsibility to build the relationship with you, not the other way around. He was free to do as he saw fit, but that doesn't mean he won't have to live with the consequences of his actions. OMG, he seems lovely. You don't owe him anything. His fertility issues seem like karma. It makes me wonder if he found that out during the 3 years he was entirely absent and only reached out because he realized that you're irreplaceable. I would have said, well, if you can't have more daughters, then maybe you should appreciate the one you have. Everything that is happening is a consequence of how you've acted all these years. His rights? He lost those when he went for milk. He lost those when he went LC. He lost those when he sided with your half-brother. He lost those when he called you names. He lost those when he felt no obligation to help you. Don't feel bad. If anything, he should have been doing everything to build a relationship with you. After all, he's the one who destroyed it. Congratulations on getting into a prestigious school. Focus on this next chapter in your life. You deserve to. I, 28 female, bought a house 2 years ago. It's a very spacious place, 4 bed, 3 baths, and a big garden that I've been remodeling and making my own. My fiance and I have been dating for 4 years. He, 32, has 2 kids from a previous marriage, preteen male and very young female child that are terrific kids. On top of that, I have 2 nephews, my sister's kids, that I adore and love with my whole heart, very young male and toddler male. My fiance and I have talked about moving together for about 1 to 2 years, but it's been difficult with the purchase and several custody fights he's had with his ex. He and his kids were supposed to be moving at the end of this year or at the beginning of next. Sadly, my sister and her husband passed away 2 months ago, and my nephews were left alone. I knew I'd be asked to take them in, and I was 100% sure that I wanted to because I love them, and I wasn't willing to let them go into the system. But I talked to my fiance first. While he wanted me to take the boys too, he didn't like that they had priority over his kids. Since I currently have 4 bedrooms, 2 kids would have had to share, and I was against it no matter who they were, because I don't like the idea of cramping small kids in a room. He said it was okay, that my nephews could share a room, and his kids could have the other 2. I said heck no, and then he didn't like when I offered for us to move to the basement so all of the kids could have the rooms, with the idea of my son, very young child, having my room, because since his boy's the oldest, he should have it, and a few more incidents. Ultimately, as selfish as it was, I decided it was my house, and I'll do what was best for my nephews. Due to his lack of empathy, we were no longer moving in together, and that we could either plan to add 2 or 3 more bedrooms to the house after we married, or he could go, because my nephews needed me more right now. So I moved them in, decorated their bedrooms as they liked, and called it a day. I'm still getting texts from him and his family, we haven't broken up, about how I could have made it work, because those kids see me as a mother figure, which is true, and I abandoned them to accommodate my nephews, which is also true, sort of. He called me an idiot, so I don't know, am I? Not the idiot. Your nephews are orphans. Of course you want to treat them well. Your fiancé sounds like some villain from a Dickens novel, for crying out loud. Make the orphans share a room, while his non-orphaned kids should have priority, first, last, and always in your house? I don't think so. Your fiancé getting his family in on badgering you to accommodate what he wants to do in your house is a huge red flag. Don't budge. If you do marry this guy, do not put him on the deed, and get a will made up to make sure your nephews are taken care of, because your fiancé doesn't care about anyone but himself. 2 small boys have lost their parents. They are adrift in a sea of fear and uncertainty, and you're trying to provide them an anchor to hold on to. Your SO's attitude makes it clear that he doesn't care about those boys in the slightest, and it doesn't sound like he'd be a good father figure for them. Red flags all over. My guess is he will always think his kids should be number 1. Cut him loose. It's so much easier to be an ex-girlfriend than an ex-wife. Get out now. I've been struggling with my mental health for a while now. After years of putting it off, I finally started therapy this year. It's been eye-opening, stressful, frightening, and enlightening. I've known that I've struggled with anxiety for years, but with the help of my therapist, we found out that I also have ADHD, and I'm probably on the autism spectrum. For the most part, my husband has been supportive, but he still gets frustrated with me because he feels like he's not a priority for me anymore. I've told him many times that I need to focus on myself and that I can't help anyone unless I help myself first. Unfortunately, he doesn't seem to grasp this. We had a big fight on Saturday because he told me that he doesn't feel like a priority to me anymore. He said he feels like I put our son, my job, our dog, and everything else in our lives except him on my priority list. He said he constantly feels like an afterthought and that his needs and wants don't matter. I tried to explain all the things he could do to help support me better and get me to a place where I have the emotional, physical, and mental energy to be there for him more. Still, he got angry because he felt I was invalidating everything he said and just doing more work for him. Yesterday, I wanted to take our son to a pumpkin patch, but my husband said that he woke up with a bad head cold and wanted to stay home and rest. So I asked him if he could at least get a few things done around the house while I was with our son. When we got home, he was sitting on the couch watching football. The only thing he did was clean the shower, do the dishes, and pick up lunch for us. There was still laundry to be folded, yard work to be done, meal planning, etc. I was not happy. I was texting my mom about the pumpkin patch and venting about my husband not doing things around the house, but I accidentally sent a few texts to him instead of my mom. He got angry when he saw them. He said he doesn't feel good and just wanted to rest, and I'm complaining to these other people about him, making him feel like crap. He said he tried doing a few things, got lightheaded, and just wanted to rest, and all I care about is whether or not the clothes are folded. He said this is exactly what he means when he says he feels like he doesn't matter to me, but all I wanted was a little help around the house, so I don't constantly feel overwhelmed. I have so many things going on inside my head daily that he doesn't understand. I just want him to be able to take some of the things off my plate without me having to ask him. He barely spoke to me the rest of the day, and this morning he wouldn't even hug me before he took our son to daycare. I've spent the morning crying because he's making me feel guilty instead of helping me. You are the idiot. The only thing he did was clean the shower, do the dishes, and pick up lunch for us. That sounds like a lot for someone who wasn't feeling well enough to go on the fun outing, when that would have presented a perfect opportunity for the quality time he wants more of. But seriously, you want someone with a head cold doing yard work when the weather's turned cold enough for a pumpkin patch to sound like a good idea? How long do you want him laid up for? I'm unwell and expect my husband to be completely supportive. I then was not supportive when my husband was unwell and was stupid enough to get caught complaining about him to my mommy. Do you hear yourself? He was sick and did several things around the house and for you while you were gone. And what does he get? Yet another fight and knowledge that you're talking about him behind his back. It sounds like nothing is good enough. And did you seriously expect he'd have time to clean the bathroom, do the dishes, do laundry, do the yard work, get lunch, and a meal plan while you were at a pumpkin patch? That's a ton of chores and completely unreasonable, even if he felt 100%. I, female 20, babysit for my older sister Becky, 35, regularly. Becky and her husband both work full-time and are well off. They could easily afford a nanny, but feel uncomfortable with the idea of someone they don't know personally looking after their kids. Becky pays me £9 an hour to look after my nephew and nieces. Becky's kids are Max, tween male, Bella, female pre-tween, and Eve, younger female. Bella and Eve give me no trouble at all. They're polite, thoughtful little girls, and I've never had to discipline them. Max, however, is a different story. I love my nephew, but he's a very difficult kid. Becky told me that he had been diagnosed with ADHD. His behavior has gotten a lot worse over the past month, and every single time I babysit, Max argues with me. It's stressful, and I'm tired of dealing with this regularly. I've talked to Becky about his increasingly worse behavior, and she says he's just becoming a teenager. Max is always glued to his Xbox, playing video games, and he gets angry when asked to do mundane things, like come downstairs for dinner, get ready for bed, etc. He's incredibly stubborn. I usually babysit them in the evenings, so getting Max to bed at a reasonable time is usually the biggest source of stress. His bedtime is 10:30 p.m. The last time I was babysitting, which was last week, it was 10 p.m., and I told Max he needed to finish the game he was on, then get ready for bed. Max raised his voice at me and told me to go away. I told Max that it's not up for debate and that his bedtime is a set rule. Max started yelling and cursing at me to get out of his room. I told Max his sisters were sleeping and to lower his voice. Max lost his temper and told me I couldn't tell him what to do. He started having a major meltdown. He threw his Xbox controller at the TV, screaming his head off. I told Max I would leave his room and return once he calmed down. Unfortunately, I got distracted by Bella and Eve, who were woken up, confused and frightened, and Max had fallen asleep in the 20 minutes I was gone. I decided not to babysit for Becky until his behavior is better, as I find looking after Max too much, and frankly, I don't want to deal with him. I told Becky about this, and she said, "Isn't that what I'm paying you to do?" She thinks I'm being silly and told me that stress is a part of life, and since she's paying me, I should suck it up. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. For 3 kids, £9 is a laughable wage, and the fact that she's trying to use it as some clapback is foolish at best. You're completely in your right to set boundaries. Max's behavioral issues need to be dealt with by his parents, not his aunt. You should be making 3 times that amount for babysitting. You're being taken advantage of, and I don't blame you for not taking care of a volatile kid. It's not your place to fix this kid, and he needs counseling to learn how to deal with his emotions. Having ADHD isn't an excuse for bad behavior. Letting that boy continue to act that way is just setting him up for a lifetime of failure. Are they doing something to help with his behavior control, or just writing it off as ADHD? Stick to your guns on this, because it might be the only way the parents actually start trying to help the boy, instead of excusing his behavior. Especially if they get a nanny and the nanny says the same thing. I'm confused. You said they're wealthy and could easily afford a nanny. Why are you being paid such a low wage if that's so? I earned more than $10 an hour for 3 kids back in the early 2000s. Either your sister can't afford the things she says she can, she's woefully underpaying you, or no nanny would deal with her kid. I, 33 female, have 3 preschool kids, and my husband and I work full-time. We send our children to daycare, which is very expensive. My sister-in-law, 27, husband's little sister, is due to give birth to her first baby in about a month. She's fortunate that her job is providing her with a fully paid 6 months of maternity leave. Here is where the conflict comes in. Since she'll be home for 6 months watching her baby, my husband and I thought we could also drop our children off. My husband's mother is there with her most days anyway, and her husband for the first 3 weeks, so she has a lot of help. It would also be a nice time for all the cousins to bond and get close. It would also save us a ton in childcare costs for 6 months, and we can finally throw some money into savings. My husband and I visited his sister last week and brought this up to her near the end of our visit. She was very quiet but said she'd think about it. The next day she sent my husband a text saying that she discussed it with her husband and they decided they just wanted that time to bond with their baby and taking the kids would be too much. We honestly think that this is BS and her husband talked her out of it. She has her husband and my mother-in-law there to help. She won't even need to bother with my kids, and it's only for 6 months. We offered to let her have 2 weeks with just the baby so they could bond and start bringing out the kids after that, but she declined. My husband is more upset than I am and has been ignoring his sister since, in his words, she isn't family if she can't help out the family. She has called and texted my husband many times, but he ignored them all and then blocked her. She's very upset about this, and so is mother-in-law. She keeps telling my husband he's ruining her pregnancy and causing her stress, but he won't back down. And now my mother-in-law is mad at me because I was the one who asked. I see my husband's point. Family should help family, but I wish he would just back down to make peace. You are the idiot. She will be home for 6 months to recover and bond with her newborn, not to save you money on daycare. How dare you? She didn't have 3 kids. You did. She didn't make your child support expensive. Did you look after another random family member's kids when you had your first baby? You're not entitled to someone else's time just because they're family. Did you even offer to compensate her? Now, in total fairness, they offered to let her have 2 whole weeks along with the baby. LMAO. Ha, her maternity leave is for her to recover from her birth and bond with her baby, not watch your horde of kids for you because you can't be bothered to use birth control or plan your family around your finances. Holy moly, the entitlement is mind-boggling. Like, oh my God. This is a joke, right? It has to be. No decent person with 3 preschool kids thinks that a brand new mom learning to parent, breastfeed, learn the baby's cues, and maintain a small portion of individual personhood should be tasked with 3 additional small children with needs, tears, and germs, even if they were being paid. This is the most selfish nonsense I've ever heard. You owe the entire family an apology for your entitlement and possibly need some therapy for your lack of basic understanding.